Hello there. So it's about time to update my Nightblade tank build video. So I just wanted to, first of all, to say how they are a bit different than a Dragonite tank, which is what's been established as one of the basic tanking classes. So if you're coming to play a Nightblade after a DK or trying to make it like a Dragonite, then you are doing it wrong. So they of course have the same basic functions of keeping aggro, debuffing, buffing, etc., placement of things, but the play style is a bit different. So a Dragonite, you do a lot of blocking and shielding and kind of just standing there, chaining talons, that type of thing. With the Nightblade, you're going to have more mobility, you're going to be blocking less, and you're going to have a lot more resources so that you can position enemies where you want them. Because of that, I don't often find that I need to have a crowd control or fear ability to make enemies stay still for a couple of seconds, because I'm able to place them where I want them and keep taunt on them. If you want to do that, that is of course an option with a class skill, but just to point out first how it is a bit different than your basic Dragonite tank. So let me just switch something up on my bar real quick that I usually have on here. I was just tanking a dungeon, so put on altar. Okay, so first of all, the food that I like to use is either the sugar skulls if you need to have a little bit of health recovery. I generally would use this in more difficult content, or but cloud rest, etc. Otherwise, she's also my crafter, so ignore all the other food. But otherwise, you'd use your general tri-stat, and the long fin pasty with melon sauce is a good one. As you can see, the stats are a little bit different, 44 and 41 versus 46 and 42. So you get just a little bit more with this. They both last 2 hours. As far as your potions go, just your standard, what you'd call tri-stat potions. They're craftable. So these guys right here, Bugloss, Mountain Flower, and Columbine. Or you can use the Crown Tri-Stat potions. The game likes to give us a lot of. They are, as you can see, quite nice as well. Not too much of a difference. The Crown ones are a little bit better. If you want to use those, you are welcome to. Okay, so to go first for the skills for your setup, this is my general bar setup. So I find it quite useful to be able to chain things in with Silver Leash. This is in the Fighter's Guild skill line. You do have to be careful to not way overuse it, because you'll run out of stam. So if you're a perma-block tank, you're going to have a hard time with this skill, because it takes from your stamina instead of magicka, and as you know, when you block, you do not regen stamina. So but this does go well with the Nightblade tank, because you only really need to block heavies or attacks that hit really hard. Otherwise, you can mostly evade or just take less damage from most of your attacks. So that's why you don't have to block as much. I go for Pierce Armor. I'm finding that I don't need as much resistances on the Nightblade tank, so you don't need to go ransack. If you really want to, you can. I just like to really keep up on the priority targets, the Fracture and Breach. And you can guarantee that's being done. That can also be done with the LA Drain from a healer or whatnot, but there can always be a little bit of downtime, whereas with a tank, you're poking it, it's staying with you, it's got those on. I really like the Heroic Slash on this guy, because it regens the ulti even faster and gives a little bit of that maim. I keep it in my rotation. Dark Cloak is something I keep on. This is not, as I said, like a Dragonite where you would wait till your health gets low and hit Green Dragon's Blood. This is something that you keep on all the time. It lasts for 8 seconds. So it gives you minor protection while you're shrouded, and it also gives you a little bit of a heal. Swallow Soul's one you can flex out. I do keep it on there just kind of as a little heal that's going out for me. You don't have to use that, Bolstering Darkness is what you would call your selfish ulti. So if you do need to use it, then it, as you can see, it gives you major protection while you're inside it and anyone else. It's not completely selfish because you can give it to your other group members if they're close enough to you, and they can also heal themselves pretty quickly with that, as you can see. One thing to keep in mind when setting up your bars for the Nightblade tank is passives. That is very important for the tank. You have a lot more class skills than you would on a Dragon Knight. Okay, so on my back bar, I like to keep up leeching. So this is where you get your stamina back. It's a 20-second cast, so I usually hit it every other rotation. In a raid, you're going to use this to gather up your range ads or to get their attention first, and then you can chain them in. You have a lot of magicka, so you can do that. Blockade of Storms is what I use to keep down the Crusher with my infused staff, and also to knock the enemies off balance. Mirage gives you your major evasion and minor resolve, so that is something that I keep up. It's 26 seconds, so I do it every other rotation with the leeching. And your Refreshing Path it's a nice little bit of heal. It also makes you go fast, so I use it to gather up enemies quickly. Gives you a heal, but the most important part of this is you need to put it down and stand in it to give you your resolve. So you don't have to use balance on a Nightblade tank because of this. If you want to, you can, but I've never needed it. This is going to be your staple for trials and 4-man content, etc. So you want to make sure that you keep that up. That's why it's nice for the Nightblades to use Heroic Slash. Okay, so you can also use Soul Harvest if you want, because it's slotted and you kill, you gain ulti, but I haven't used it since they changed that skill really to that. Haven't really bothered with Reaper's Mark. Merciless Resolve is something that you can do, because if you're good into light attack weaving with your skills, which I actually do, then it is nice for reducing your damage taken. But I don't really find I need that. If you want to use it, you can flex out Swallow of Soul for that. Totally fine, but what we want to look at is the passives here. Okay, so this is more for for DPS here, but when you do hit a crit damage, then it gives your group minor savagery. So this is why Nightblade tanks would be good for a stamina group. Stamina is not that big right now, so you don't have to worry too much about that. So that's why you would want to use Merciless Resolve for your bow prac, or Soul Harvest. It would be to keep up that. Okay, so the skills on this tree, like I told you about these two skills already. This is not morphed yet. I just have not really found the need to do a crowd control like Talons type of thing. Usually I'm paired with a DK tank, so if you're let's say you need to Talons down some cats in VMAL, they can do that for you real quick, or you can use it, flex out Swallow for that. I just haven't leveled it yet, but you totally are welcome to if you like crowd control. Okay, so what's nice about having these slotted is, as you can see, I have Dark Cloak, I don't know why it has that symbol on it, on one bar, and I have Refreshing Path on the other bar. And the reason being is for this, I increase my recoveries as passively. When I cast an ability, then this has been changed. Instead of just standing in as before, is when you cast it, then you get Major Resolve for 6 seconds. So I'll cast Refreshing and I'll cast Dark Cloak every rotation, so that should keep it up really nicely. You have your max health increased on each bar, so that helps because you don't have as much health. I use the Lord Mundus because of that, and the abilities last a little bit longer with that passive. Okay, as far as siphoning goes, so as you can see, I have Swallow on the front bar and Leeching on the back bar. You can also put in Sap Essence if you like. but I don't find it personally as helpful as soul. So keeping one on each bar is so you can, when you drink a potion, you get ultimate. You have more max magicka while it's slotted, and you increase your healing done to yourself. So your Nightblade tank has really good survivability. It doesn't take as much damage, and you always got a heal over time going. You just can't let yourself get to where you're almost dead and try and burst yourself back up. That's just not that type of tank. And anytime you cast it, you generate ultimate, which is good. Okay, and then you just have your basic one hand and shield. I don't use this ulti. Don't use that guy really. Except for, you're not going to use it as a general shield. It's more of like if you're trying to take in something that's going to absorb, if a projectile hits you, then it will heal you. So something like Zamaja in her heavy attack. This is just for last boss Vihoff when you need to zoom in so he doesn't jump. Definitely want all your passives on that guy. For your destruction staff, crushing shock's a nice ability to have. You can only use it on your back bar because that's where your staff bar is, and you would use that in certain places where you need to get an interrupt, like off tank Hellraw or VCR or Cloud Wrist, whatnot. Blockade, I always keep that one down. It lasts longer, so I do that more. Elemental Drain, you'll want to have that on crystals and Cloud Wrist, and like 4-man stuff like in Dragon Star, etc. But just keep in mind you don't have as many flex spots with a Nightblade tank as you would with a different tank. I really strongly suggest not having this passive, because if you do use a frost staff, you don't want to accidentally take taunt if you're trying to get like mag back by a heavy attack or something like that. But you can get those other guys right there. Light armor, I only do heavy armor on her, but if you ever need to, it's nice to have those couple passives, so make sure you have all those guys. Fighters Guild, you definitely want to have your Silver Leash, like I said, because that is your chains, and Ring of Preservation. I find it nice to give minor protection and endurance to anyone in the circle for you. So it comes in handy in some situations where everyone's taking a lot of damage. I don't use anything really on the Mages Guild right now. Like I said, you don't need balance because you have your own resolve source. Okay, so on the Undaunted line here, these are a lot of things that you can flex in. The Overflowing Altar I would put in Cloud Wrist or in places where there is not a healer. It's for the synergy for them. Shadow Silk if you just want to create another synergy. Bone Surge, I don't really end up needing it because you don't really need a shield on a Nightblade tank. And a lot of the healers have the Black Rose staff, which gives you the same major vitality benefit, and you don't have to be as close with that one. This you have to like stand on top of people pretty much for them to proc it. Energy Orb's another good thing for like 4-man if you don't need to throw an orb out. Definitely want to have your passives. Okay, and you don't really, the only thing you really need Vigor for is if you're trying to use Powerful Assault. I use Efficient Purge. This is, I flex out Heroic Slash for this usually, and for Blood Altar. Mystic Guard, you can use it to guard your healers in VOF hard mode, or your tanks in various situations, the other tank. I am a high elf. I really like being a high elf on this, on the Nightblade tank, because of the restoring your mag and stam every 6 seconds is really nice. I have more max magicka, and I also have spell damage up, which is pretty fun. Make sure you have up your medicinal use. She's also my crafter, so ignore all of that other stuff. Okay, so to go over my character sheet real quick, this is my front bar. You can, the thing with building your tanks is you pretty much just want to make it so your stamina is slightly higher than your magicka. You'll want your health between 35 and 40k generally. This is with trial setups. My resistances, as you can see, are a little bit low, unbuffed, but like let's say that I hit that guy and that guy, and they jump up to 28, which is more than enough for most stuff. And then monster sets can proc and give you more. Your resistance cap is around 32k-ish, okay? So those are just the stats I generally have being. Like I said, I have the Lord Mundus, and that's my food about to wear out. And my back bar, there's a little bit difference. I have more max magicka back here. But I still have, as you can see, 30 more max stamp, so anytime I hit an orb, it'll regen that. Okay, so as you can see, my resistances are not as high, so try not to block things on your staff bar unless you're using an ice staff. Okay, so on to the gear. Generally, I keep on Alkosh, always. Only time I'll take it off is for like powerful assault or Olorimer. Worm, something like that, if you're using it for like 4-man, or if you're like an off tank and somewhere where Alkosh isn't going to be much of a benefit, you can use different sets. The reason you really like this, I don't want to go too much over the sets, but it reduces the physical and spell resistance of any enemy hit in a conal area. So it's whatever way you're facing, and you'll notice the debuff it puts on them at the top of your screen, as long as you have that on. Okay, and I like to, you want to have infused for that, you can pretty much use whatever you want. I just like to use that, and you can put whatever you want on the front bar. You can use a shock, you can use a mag, you can use a stam absorb. I generally wouldn't suggest weakening or a crusher because those are halved on small weapons, not the two hands, so someone else will have that and it's just kind of a waste. Okay, so you definitely want to have infused on your crusher staff for having a better enchant on that when you use it. You can also use the ice staff. You don't want to have it sharpened. I just have it on my DK tank, my infused staff right now. I generally like to use Stonekeeper. There are a lot of different monster sets you can use. So you can have Lord Warden, which as you can see gives physical and spell resistance to anyone in the area. It's not a named ability, so it does stack with other things, any skills, etc. I have Earth Goron just for VCR if I need that. I just don't happen to have all my sets on this tank. You can also use things like Engine Guardian, Vykosa, Thorvikin, Blood Spawn. I would not recommend Chudan because it's redundant with your skills. Okay, so Yolnakrin is your other staple you'll want if you're on a main tank. Nightblades are good for main tanks on a lot of things, but they can do either one. Okay, so as you can see, this gives your enemies minor courage when you taunt them. Useless, why you want to keep it on a main tank. Off tanks can wear Ebon, so that's usually the other thing I have on here. I like to put Tri-Stat infused on my big pieces, and I like to do Sturdy on my small pieces. You do not want to put Ebon on your weapons because when you bar swap, it can mess with people's health. It won't mess with yourself so much anymore, but it does still do with other people's. Okay, so as you can see, I have Sturdy on small pieces and infused on big pieces. The big pieces have Tri-Stat glyphs. The other one, you can just use whatever glyph you want to round out your stats. So as you can see, I have health, stam, mag, just whatever ended up working. I don't generally have reinforced. I think that my infused is currently on my Dragonite tank at the moment. Okay, so as far as jewelry goes, there are a lot of different options that people like. I generally use Robust. I have a Bracing Enchant on this guy, and then I use Harmony in VCR. You can also use Swift. You can use Infuse if you really want to. I just generally tend to stick with these two. So I have Mag Recovery on my 2 other ones, and I also have a copy of Harmony as well. I do have bleaching, I just haven't used it in a long time because you can survive pretty much anything with a Nightblade tank. And just to show you my recovery, I have it at about just over 1,000. And it's the same on both bars. Okay, so champion points, these can change a lot, so depending on your playstyle and what content you're in. This is my general setup. So there are different CPs out there. You can always ask me for a list of those, or you can look them up. I tend to keep higher on Blessed and Elfborn. And there's a bunch of different things you can do with it, so CP is not as important. Red CP you can change per trial, or you can keep it about where it's at. I generally don't tend to mess with my red CP as much because I like to keep things well rounded for myself and keep my resistance about that so I can have a good amount. Okay, so that's pretty much it for an update on my Nightblade tank for now. I do use it in pretty much everything with this setup and is quite effective. Okay,